afterlife of imagination or fact. Who can say for sure which it is? I can see that my life will be a scandal and an inspiration. Charles Dickens will write of me, and Twain, even Havelock Ellis. I will be a riddle that generations will try to answer. A riddle I am trying to answer now. When I was a boy, I was told that when I began a story, to begin at the beginning and continue to the end. So I shall. The question, of course, is where it all began. Where does any story start? Where did mine? The ending, alas, is always all too clear. But to understand my beginning, you must understand her end. Margaret's. Although it has been a very long time since I saw her, more than a lifetime or several, I recall her vividly. Though now she is more like an echo, an idea I once had, a dream. Yet for years, when I looked in the mirror, I saw her looking back with my blue eyes. And somewhere in a parish church in Cork, there is a baptism recorded for the second child of Mary Ann and Jeremiah Brackley, who was christened one early April, our parents' eldest daughter, Margaret Brackley, an ungainly name for an unpromising start. No one who had ever seen Margaret Brackley in her infancy would have supposed her born to be a heroine, or so Jane Austen might have written of her, had she been informed of Margaret's entrance into the world in 1795 or so. Her situation in life, her mother and father, her own person and disposition were all equally against her. Her father was a prosperous greengrocer in Cork, without being neglected or poor, and a very respectable man, though his name was Jeremiah, and he had never been handsome. His eldest daughter, Margaret, had a thin, awkward figure, sallow skin, unruly red-blonde hair, and diminutive features, and not less unpropitious for heroism seemed her mind. She greatly preferred dogs to dolls. She had no taste for needlepoint or books, drawing or dances. There was nothing in the appearance of Margaret, in short, that would have suggested her as a likely heroine of this or any story. And she had what was considered to be in the late 18th century, as in too many centuries before and since, that most appalling defect at birth. She was born a girl. My uncle, Jonathan Perry, R.A., was already a famous painter in London when I was born. He went by Perry now, a name close to my mother's family name, but English, the name change necessary to pass among the powerful, to pose as one of them. From our comfortable provincial parlour in Cork, my uncle's life seemed like a fairy tale, a myth or legend as remote as King Arthur and his knights. I did not know who Sir Joshua Reynolds was, or Edmund Burke, my uncle's friends, but I knew enough to be impressed by their names, to know these were important men from the way my mother spoke of them, as if they were our rich relations. When I first was told that my uncle was a member of the Royal Academy, I mistakenly thought this meant that he was royalty, and that I might grow up to be a prince. Although in those days I'd have hoped to be a princess. Likely my uncle would have remained a mythological figure in my childhood bestiary, no more real to me than a satyr or the Sphinx, had it not been for my brother's extravagant failure, which necessitated our journey to London to seek his help. It would have been more fitting for our father to make the trip to petition assistance from my eminent uncle on our behalf, but, besieged by creditors, he could not leave the country without tempting the jailer and debtor's prison. And although they'd long ago fallen out of touch, brother and sister had once been close. So my mother took up her pen and wrote to him. Or rather, since her hand shook at the thought of writing to ask for his help, I did, though I was only 9. My uncle seemed to me in those days close kin to Ovid's conjuring on those Sunday afternoons, when my father sat with us at his desk, the windows thrown open to the walled garden outside, the lazy buzz of bees in the apple blossoms, the air musky with lilac, as we sat over his old Latin grammar and Roman texts, his idea of an antidote to my mother's Catholic Mass. The lessons were meant more for my older brother's benefit than mine, but my brother Tom had no head for books. He was given to gazing out the window and tossing twigs at rabbits in the underbrush, so we were all amazed when he announced his intention to pursue law as an apprentice in Dublin. My parents were delighted that a grocer's son might rise to become a solicitor or barrister, a man...